welcome, thank you for coming. Matt and Ryan from Moderated by Matt. We're so excited to be able to talk the Oscar-nominated live-action short Butchersstain with the writer-director, Meyer, and the producer, Oron. Thank you for coming. So, first question to you, where did the story come from?
So first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for coming, and I just wanted to say that this is a really exciting moment for us because this is our first screening outside of Israel.
Woo! Well, that's wonderful, thank you.
So the story originally sort of came from me because I was working at the supermarket after the 7th of October. 7th of October was a sort of time in Israel that was a little bit like the coronavirus in the sense that everyone was at home and there wasn't a lot to do and school was out. So I went to work at the supermarket for a little bit just to kind of make some money. And what I saw was sort of two things happening at the same time. One was the traumatic events of the 7th of October, sort of the collective trauma, the fact that so many people at the supermarket had relatives that were murdered, or people that they knew that were victims of those events, and sort of the national crisis and the collective trauma. But at the same time, there was sort of this sort of racism and discrimination that I witnessed, and a finger pointed towards the Palestinian Arab-Israeli community. And I wanted to sort of tell the story of both things at the same time, and the complexities of collective trauma and its effects on certain ethnicities that are then blamed for those events.
And Oron, what attracted you to the project?
Meyer. So a very talented young man and a very good writer and a very good friend. We both study in Tel Aviv University, and it's the third production that we've done together. It's the third film I've produced for him during the degree. And he came up to me one day and brought me the script, and it was a page turner. I couldn't stop reading. It was fascinating, which is something that doesn't happen too often when you're a student. So it was brilliant, and I immediately knew that I wanted to produce it.
So why did you pick the butcher as your main character?
It's a good question. The main goal with the main idea of putting that sort of metaphor or image in the center of the film was to sort of put up the stereotype of how that community was viewed by some people and break it. So essentially you have a butcher, and a butcher is viewed as this sort of violent job because they're cutting meat all day. And that's the stereotype. And then Samir, as a person, he's very gentle, he's a very polite person, he's intelligent, and throughout the film maybe you suspect that he's going to at some point become violent, but he never does, and it's sort of putting that stereotype up and then showing you how baseless it is.
And this is for both of you, and the producers, what were the challenges in casting Samir, because he was, the heart and soul of the movie?
So originally, I didn't know, there's a very small amount of Palestinian Israeli or Arab Israeli actors in Israel. So it's very hard to find the person that suits the role the best. I ended up approaching an Arab actor agent, and he sort of set me up with Omar Samir, the main actor. And I originally was like, okay, so give me a few options. And he's like, I'm not going to give you a few options. He's your guy. Just audition him. And so I did, and he blew me away. Not just because he's a great actor, but because when he ended up auditioning for that scene where he's accused of tearing down the hostage posters, instead of doing it the way that I expected him to do it, which was arguing and confronting, instead he does it as if his heart is broken. As if he's so deeply offended by the fact that someone views him as a danger. and as someone doing this horrible act. So I think that essentially his take on the character was what moved me, and 3 out of 4 days, I think, of the production days, he couldn't do it, so we had to move the entire production. I think Oron can speak to that.
As you could see, we were very lucky with Omar, and he's very professional and very easy to work with. From a producer's perspective, there were a few auditions before, and once we had Omar audition, then we knew that there will be some conflicts in schedule, and I told Meyer that we're not gonna do this. Okay, this is conflicting. We gotta make this movie done. And Meyer insisted, and he said, no, this is the guy. The audition went a lot better than what I thought, and I'm very glad he did, because this is a result. So it was.
You mentioned the interrogation scene, basically, and I was struck by you and your cinematographer shooting his eyes. There's so much pain in his eyes. Like, how can you accuse me of something? You know, we're family. Like, this is something we do. Can you talk a little about the inspiration of that scene and how you kind of developed the interrogation scene? Because I thought the woman actor was also fantastic in that scene.
Yeah, so that scene is supposed to, it's sort of, I was inspired by some of Paul Thomas Anderson's filmmaking, specifically The Master. And in The Master, you have these kind of scenes where you have the shot reverse, where you're just so focused on the character's emotions and reactions. And so after Omar ended up auditioning for that scene, and the way that he acted, I realized that I really just wanted to solely focus on that shot reverse. So I worked with the DOP, Safi Ali Chanachmani, who is a very, very talented DOP, as you can see. And we sort of built that kind of cinematic language where you're just focused on the gazes in every single scene. Like, every single scene is guided by what people are looking at and how they're looking at it, and from what angle they're looking at it. So that's really how I built the cinematography of that scene. And the acting was, the interesting thing about the acting was I had rethought the whole entire scene and the way that I wanted to sort of direct the actors. And I realized that when I was directing them and saying, okay, you're going to be fired, you're worried about your job, and you don't want to fire him because this is kind of uncomfortable, then they sort of did the scene and it was very dry. And then I was like, how do I make this more emotional? So instead of directing it as that scene, I directed it as if it was like a breakup, where, you know, both characters are heartbroken, and one has to deliver the news and one has to receive it, and it sort of has that sort of complexity to that, to the way that that's acted.
Because Omar's fantastic, but you also have to do co-stars.
Yes.
So for you, what was the process in Near and Mike because with casting such pivotal parts? How did you find them and what did you see in them?
Well, as a student filmmaker, you kind of find actors in sort of weird ways. It's not. When you go through the agencies, it's really hard to convince sometimes agencies with a student film, like, I need your, like, you know, your best actors, and you don't get emails back, and you have like a tight schedule, and it's really challenging. So a lot of the actors were people that I knew from like smaller student projects, and I always like remember people that act in my films, even in the smaller things, because you end up realizing that they can suit another role. So Rona Toledano, who played the manager, was someone who I had worked with before in a smaller role, and she's also phenomenal. And that's the kind of way, you know, you kind of put stuff up on Facebook, and you do like, I don't know, 50 auditions, and you know, 40 of them are very bad, and then, you know, another 9 are sort of okay, and then suddenly you find this like amazing actor out of nowhere, and you know, they've never acted before, and this is their first time, but they're really good. So I'm a big believer in, you know, discovering people, and I don't think that, you know, the fact that you've acted in 100 movies changes the fact that you're, you know, better actor or worse actor. It's really about the internal talent that you have.
Now, of course, casting was beautiful, script beautiful, but you had to actually make the movie. That's a whole other ball of wax. For you, what was, as a producer, what was your biggest challenge like of trying to put this thing together production-wise and supporting your director?
Of course, we have several hurdles on the way. First of all, we shot during the war, so sirens went on as we were shooting. And we shot, which was a thing in itself, and Omar had to come from Fakhim, which is about an hour
2
or
hours
so,
probably, yeah.
yeah, a couple hours drive. So a lot of pressure in that sense in terms of security, but also we shot in a working supermarket. Okay, the supermarket was on, and so we decided to shoot at night. Where there was less traffic of people, but you have to worry about that. You have to, like, as we were shooting the movie, it's like a cut, we just have to pass margarine, please, to the lady behind the, you know, like we had to do stuff like that. So you deal with it, you just deal with it. You roll with the punches and you just move forward, and I love that. I love that when it comes to producing, and yeah, there were several things to deal with, but it was great.
One of the sequences when he goes home and his ex-wife won't let him see his kid, that was tormented me. But it also led to him finally exploding on Meyer, saying, "How could you accuse me of this? We're friends." Can you talk a little bit story-wise how that flowed, like introducing the child aspect, not seeing the visit, and then to his finally confronting, and it's like, "I love you. Basically, I love all you people. Why would you do this to me?"
So sometimes it seems that even more than the subject of the film itself, that plotline is even more controversial. No, I mean, some people sort of didn't understand why I introduced a personal plotline in a short film. It's not necessarily something I usually do. For me, it's the point. It's not a side note at all. It's really about showing you that this person, Samir, isn't a symbol of, you know, victims of racism and discrimination. He isn't a symbol, he isn't a message, he's a guy. He's a guy who comes into the supermarket and works, and he has a sort of complicated family situation on the side. And so it was really important for me to show that, and it was also really important for me to end with that. Showing that, you know, there's this moment where he's looking at the hostage posters and they fall down. And that's the moment where people are like, okay, this is the movie gonna end now. And for me, I didn't want it to end there, because I don't think that he should be defined by being discriminated against or by, you know, everything that's happening in the supermarket. I think that he should be defined by his personal life and the person that he is. And that's the center of the film. That's why it was so important for me to do that. And they're directly connected. Part of what this film talks about is the personal effects of national crisis and collective trauma. How does it affect that one person? Not how does it affect an entire nation? How does it affect the guy who is, you know, an Arab, Palestinian, Israeli working at the supermarket and suddenly is looked at different? People don't want to sit with him and eat. People don't want to talk to him. How does that feel?
Yeah, and that's why it was. I do have to. I'm not going to ask you to necessarily with your opinions on this, because I know you're really ambiguous. But would it have mattered if he actually told the truth that the poster fell on its own?
So I think that the answer to that is no, for sure. That's really the point. I mean, he goes out there after he realizes what's going on, and he looks at all of his coworkers, and this is where what I was talking about with the gazes comes in. The theme of suspicion, the theme of how people look at you. The whole film is guided by these gazes of how people, you know, look at other people during these times. So the way that he sees the three of those characters look at him, he realizes that society where he lives in isn't ready for change. And that's a really hard message to swallow, I think, because it's sort of tragic in its own way. But also it's an important thing to be truthful about. So I felt that when I was directing it and writing it, I was looking at the way that society was, and I viewed it as broken. And I thought that the only way to fix it is to admit the fact that it was broken, and to admit the fact that people are stuck. So it's a good question because it's definitely what I was going for.
So from the producing angle, now you have to, the film is wonderful. We all love it, but you have to get it out in the world. What was the process of like, distributing it and also screening it in Israel?
Wow. So I'm 45 years old. I'm married. I have a kid, beautiful wife and daughter. And I got into university with the mission of actually getting to work here in Hollywood. The plan from what I researched was, let's make movies, send them to film festivals, and get as much attention as possible. That's basically the route. To get into this position, it's been such a fast train. I mean, we weren't expecting this. And so we're learning this is a very, very sharp learning curve. Like you're learning a lot of stuff, and you have to work with the right people and hire the right people, and we're learning it as we go. This is a lot of information in a very short time. It's like, we're in the university, but it's like a completely new university. It's like something completely different, and we're doing our best, and I think we make a good team, and
Obviously, congrats on the Oscar nomination. That's fantastic, and I always root for that because these are films that don't get to be seen. Normally, films, especially short films, don't get to be seen. That's why I'm so happy when you guys got nominated. What has been the process like for you now that we're, in the Oscar nomination tour?
It's extremely surreal. It's unbelievable. It's almost unheard of for an Israeli student film to get this far, and so it's a win for me. It's a win for my family. It's a win for Oron and his family. It's a win for all of us student filmmakers, that worked on this project. We all made it together. It was, 12 to 13-hour days. I don't even know if that's allowed. We were just working and working and working and working and working. And it paid off for all of us, I think. So in that sense, it's an amazing feeling, and you also have to get used to it. You have to get used to the fact that you're working all day, and you almost don't even have time to sort of digest the fact that you're nominated. And you're trying to always think about how do I use this to push myself forward. And some of this stuff is new to us. But being with Oron throughout this process is amazing because, we have conversations all day and we support each other. And I have so much support from my family and from my girlfriend who's here today. It's just amazing to have that support system, and I don't think that I'd be able to make this film without that support system, both practically and emotionally. So.
I'd like to add something there.
Please.
It is an incredible honor, obviously. It's an incredible honor. And I'd just like to strengthen what Meyer just said, that this is a group effort. Filmmaking is all about working together, and the entire crew just brought it in. So we're here thanks to them, and of course, thanks to the Academy for doing that, for choosing.
Well, thank you both for coming and sharing such personal insights into this wonderful film. Thank you. Thank you.